To celebrate Africa Month and International Jazz Day, South Africa, the University of Cape Town is hosting two panel discussions that muse over the roles of language and music in liberating and integrating Africa. These will take place on Thursday, the 26th of May. The conversations will be themed Africa Day 2022, language and music as agents of liberation and continental integration. Now, to help us unpack this, we're joined on Zoom by broadcasting icon and SA Radio Awards Hall of Fame inductee, Brenda Sisane. Sisbi, good morning. Welcome to Morning Live. I mean, for someone who may not know, what is International Jazz Day?
International Jazz Day is really a day dedicated to jazz music globally by UNESCO, and it is run by the Herbie Hancock Institute of Jazz. It's a day that celebrates humanity. It's a social justice day, but it's also a day that celebrates the brilliance of jazz music as a music of integration and nation building, really.
So now we've just spoken about the discussions that are happening, and give us background into a Pan-African Jazz Dialogue, which is honoring Mem Miriam Makeba, and what is the inspiration behind that?
Thank you very much for that question. Every year when we celebrate Jazz Day on the 30th of April, there are various themes that dictate. And this year, there was 10 years of International Jazz Day, and it took place in the United Nations. But for us, we always started when we jumped onto this movement. We jumped on it during the unfortunate strikes of anti-xenophobic strikes at the time. And we wanted to see jazz as a music that is not just a liberator, but a music of integration that can bring the continent together with its brilliance of carrying messages, of solidarity and other important historical stories. And so having had a jump start with that role of carving the roots of jazz music in Africa and the routes through migrations and so on, we now have to consolidate where do we go next with this conversation. One of the big ones being that if International Jazz Day takes place on the 30th of April, which is the last day of April, it's at the cusp of the beginning of an important month in Africa, which is Africa Month. And it was therefore important to start marking the fact that it's noticeable that most International Jazz Day events already start seeping into the month of March, taking the theme of Africa Month into it. And, we're very happy to see ourselves, moving that direction, because this is the month when ourselves as Africans reflect on issues specific to us. And this is where we also explore our genius, artistically and otherwise. So this year, we therefore were inspired and to speak to the University of Cape Town, who are also happen to be introducing Kiswahili classes and who are talking about Kiswahili as a language of integration on the continent, which is almost the same conversation that we're having about music, but also somebody who is a luminary and stands tall in the story of integration in Africa using her music is Mama Miriam Makeba. And this year would have been her 90th birthday. There has been quite a number of global celebrations called Makeba 90. And we just thought it would be important to place Mama Miriam central to this conversation, having been really a spotlight of the African issues, of the African conversations, languages, and political strife. I mean, we know that she sang in various languages for starters. So she crossed the borders artistically and otherwise, but also having somebody like Nomfundo Xaluva in our team who is studying Makeba at the moment and has contributed to a global journal around Makeba. The story is we have not even begun to celebrate her at the level that I believe we should. So this was a great excuse to integrate all of these because they represent, her footprint in life on this continent and beyond.
I want to touch on the panelists that you've assembled and what was the thought process behind gathering these creators under one roof for the 2 days.
Okay, so we definitely are collaborating with the university, and it's wonderful to be able to delve deeper, within, academic institution on this. And because they are leading on the language panel, the panelists within that section are involved in the story of language, particularly of Kiswahili, such as Professor Alden Mutembi from the Julius Nyerere Chair of Kiswahili Studies in the University of Dar es Salaam. There's also Associate Professor Mantwa Mutinyane. She's in the Linguistic Department, the Faculty of Arts at the University of Western Cape, a great pundit and a supporter of these kind of movements, and Professor John Akokbari at the Department of Political Studies in UCT. And of course, Dr. Xolisa Guzula is the lecturer in Applied Language and Literacy Studies at School of Education in UCT. And I think as I read the titles, you can find, the functionality of their role in the discussion. And Dr. Retabile Posa is moderating. She's an author and academic in African language and literature. That is the panel of the morning, which will start the proceedings. And later on in the afternoon, we then zone in on the Makeba story. And Dr. Leta Mbulu, who has been conferred a doctorate by the University of Cape Town, she joins us as a preeminent performing artist. But Mama Leta could speak to us about because she was there in the USA with Miriam Makeba during the beginnings of these agitations by Makeba. And, we almost like we're taking a round table seat next to her as we hear about her reflections on Miriam Makeba and how are we missing her celebration. In praising the great Makeba, we have Dr. Gcina Mhlophe herself, and she's a celebrated author and storyteller, but she also is inspired by Miriam Makeba in many ways, and her work speaks for itself in that regard. And she wanted to contribute a specially written literary work around Mama Miriam Makeba, which will be presented at the panel. And then we invited Judith Supuma as a singer, as a woman who is known globally as global audiences, and she can give us an insight into, as a South African singer, what does it take, or how do audiences see her, and in reflection to predecessors such as Mama Miriam Makeba, on the shoulders of whom she is walking, And we invited Nikwe Bikicha. I enjoyed reading her story about her discovery of Africa as a story that has not been told in its diversity. She is a leading journalist and accomplished media and communications professional, and she brings in that reflection from the journalistic point of view, but also from how she discovered the motherland and why she believes we need to be looking forward in telling the stories of Africa. And we also have Thandiso Mazwai, who is also contributing. She's away in New York at the moment recording her album, and recently posted about her, as she's doing this new work, she talks about where does she go for the well of inspiration, and Makeba stands tall in that. And we know that Thandiso's work, even on stage, has always been about bringing up the voices of women such as Makeba to the stage and bringing them to life, really, so that we should never forget what they've left us with. And Nomfundo Xaluva, as I mentioned earlier on, is really very interesting in terms of her focus on Makeba's work, and very deeply involved in the reflections of how else we should really look at the life of Miriam, not only as a musician who sang in various languages, but, or even not only as a political activist or a cultural activist for that, but also as a woman who made choices, who was a mother, who was every other thing of being a woman that has left such a powerful legacy. That's how the band was, the panelists were chosen, really.
Yeah, well, we'll get the answers from the panelists, but I want to get your opinion on what are the roles of language and music in liberating and in integrating Africa.
When I speak about it through music, and I think it continues to liberate us, I think what I find that we're missing a lot in maybe using as a tool is the fact that music is a language on its own, and that we understand it all in the same way and in the different individual depths as it hits us and reaches us. And therefore, it is a capable tool of speaking about unity. I mean, every time we talk about the continent, we talk about the political struggles, the liberation movements. When are we talking about the reintegration of the continent to see itself as one, as one people? And music can play a particular role in that. And language itself is that, I think, because we speak so many languages, I mean, there's thousands, if not millions, of languages spoken on this continent. And I think it is a barrier of conversation. because we don't understand each other and we tend to see each other through the prism of language. I mean, at the moment, we also see each other through the prism of the colonial languages such as French, such as Portuguese, and such as English, And at some point, we also losing touch and erasing the knowledge that comes with our languages. When you speak a language, you speak about how people see themselves, the way they name things. You get to understand them better, the historiographies that are written into the naming of things and just the languaging of things. So language is really important in getting people to see themselves, to see one another, and to see oneness in a conversation. So I may not be expert in where does Kiswahili sit. I know its history is important because even those political movements of the continent, Kiswahili was a secret language, not even secret, but the language through which all these leaders were communicating with one another to create African unity. So the fact that there's over 200 million people today on the continent speaking this language, there's broadcasting programs coming even out of South Africa that present in this language is a very interesting lesson and journey that I'm willing to take myself as an individual to just learn about how language can help heal us and can help reintegrate this continent.
All right, so before I let you go, Sims and I are interested, what are you listening to at the moment, jazz-wise? We need to up our jazz collection. What are you listening to at the moment?
I'm listening to the new Shabaka Hutchins,
yes,
which is, I think Shabaka, is known to also bring the Caribbean storyline. And I'm listening to Nduduzo Makatini's new album, as well as Shane Cooper's new album.
Yes.
All of them are pretty exciting, I must say.
I'm also quite excited. I feel like everybody's just come out of their shells and now they're doing the work at the moment.
Absolutely.
Sis Brenda, thank you so much. What an honor. Thank you so much for talking to us. Broadcasting icon and SA Radio Award Hall of Fame inductee Brenda Sisane speaking to us about two panel discussions that muse over the roles of language and music in liberating and integrating Africa, taking place on Thursday, the 26th of May. There it is on your screen. It's happening at the UCT in collaboration with the University of Cape Town.